Well, look who showed up. Welcome to another edition of the R&R Sports Report. He's the host. I'm confused.
You couldn't even wait 30 seconds. You can't wait 30 seconds and let me set everything up real quick. The games aren't even done over here.
Look,
over.
Hold on. I'm calling a flag on the play. We've got an illegal intro by the hosts. So that's a 5-yard penalty, and we're going to replay first down.
All right, hold on. Good evening, Warriors, and welcome into a special Monday night edition of the R&R Sports Report. I'm your host, Randy Isbell. With me, as always, is Mr. Robert Hagan, and apparently officiating this whole entire show. Oh, God. Eric Watkins.
Yep.
Eric.
Intro is good. We had a successful one. Glad to see everybody's getting everything together. Makes my job easier, and I don't have to blow the whistle. This helps.
Oh, please don't blow the whistle. We don't have a lot of viewers anyways, and we don't need to scare all of them off. All right? Just, how's everything going with you two today?
I think I'm sweating this Miami game a little bit because, pick'ems and power rankings somewhat ride on this. Otherwise, it's not too bad. Wait a minute. How did they... No. What... Why do Florida teams always want to try to crush my spirit right before I go on air? I can't handle this a second straight week.
Robert, how are you?
Yeah, busy day as always. Looking forward to the next couple of days as we get ready for first home game for the girls coming up on Friday. First wrestling duels coming up on Wednesday. Basketball, it's here. Wrestling, it's here. Getting excited for Vista.
All right, why don't you run down what we're going to do on this show? Because I have yet to even open up the show notes to figure out what you put on them. I've had my final major project that's due tonight at midnight. I have that thing like 95% done. We'll get that finished when the show is done. Kid had his choir concert. We went and got some Christmas shopping done. So I'm about to just step away for a few minutes and let you guys talk about whatever has happened with Monday Night Football. I've kept an eye on the scores. I am shocked by some of the results, but just run down this show and I'm going to just hang out for a minute.
Well, on tonight's show, we're going to keep it short, sweet, and to the point. Lots of things that happened over the weekend. The biggest by far, we will talk MLB free agency, the signing of Shohei Ohtani. What does it mean for the Dodgers? What does it mean for him in his future? We'll talk about that. NFL Week 14. Listen, a lot of us, we lost a lot of games really close. This one tonight has been kind of crazy. We'll talk about that. High school sports, like I was saying, wrestling starts up for the Bantams here this past week. First duels coming up, local hoops, LCSC hoops, as they have a big weekend coming up. And it's Randy's favorite time of the year. College bowls start up.
We don't have time for that
on Saturday.
Short show. We're getting rid of those.
And some big news for Eric and I to talk a little bit about Live Golf signing a big name. We'll talk a little bit of golf. And you notice that Eric tonight is wearing his official referee shirt. Is that from your wrestling time? Or is that a basketball?
Flag football, actually.
So we'll talk a little bit about the officiating, some calls that are a little on the crazy side over the last 2 weeks. We'll talk about the officiating a little bit. But as first, hopefully next week will be a regular time Tuesday show.
Has to be.
Has to be.
I have booked all three of us and Harry a week from today after Monday Night Football. It's already booked for something else. We can't do the show after Monday Night Football. I have made sure that I don't care what happens. We're doing the show 6 to 8 p.m. It'll still be at home now that we have hit winter break at LC, but it'll be Tuesday, 6 p.m., and it'll be a normal 2-hour show. I guarantee it, or the world will explode. Who knows what's happening out there right now? Let's be honest.
I mean, given the crazy weather reports and everything with geomagnetic storms, you're not too far off from the world exploding. So just be careful about that.
Well, let's
All right, Robert, go ahead and do the Green Bay Giants game as that one is concluded. It looks like the Titans and Dolphins want to run a little bit longer.
Yeah, 100% as the Giants wrap things up. This one back and forth the entire time. Jordan Love, 218 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. A.J. Dillon trying to carry the load for the rushing game. Another game where Aaron Jones not in the lineup, Eric.
I mean, clearly the Packers are seeing more and want to see more out of Dillon. I'm still not 100% what's going on behind the scenes with this Jones decision. It hasn't really bit them per se, but unless things really get solidified and Dillon has another huge game, there's got to be some questions going on.
Yeah, 100%. But the Giants looked pretty decent tonight. Saquon Barkley just short of 100 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns in that one. And is he starting to look like days of old Saquon Barkley? That's what I want to know.
In my mind, yes. You've got the offensive line doing enough to give him protection. And Tommy DeVito, I'm going to say this, the power of the Paisan up in Jersey, it's working for him. And with all of this, the pressure is really now off of Saquon Barkley. And when the pressure's off, you relax, you get the big runs, you get your lanes opened up. Defenses aren't hounding you 8-9 in the box. Saquon's back.
So I think the bigger question for this team coming in, you've got Tommy DeVito, Daniel Jones on the IR, and Tyrod Taylor sitting on the backside. This team, is not going to make the playoffs. They're playing for the future. What does that future look like for Daniel Jones, even though he did have all that extra contract at the beginning of the season?
Personally, best case scenario, they're going to go ahead and have an open competition in the offseason, see who is going to stick around. DeVito, I think, will get a little bit of an edge. Worst case scenario for Jones, depending on how the rest of the quarterback market shapes up, I think he's gone. I know with the contract, trading and everything else, it's going to be a little bit tougher to find a partner, but with a little bit of a boost in salary cap, teams are already waiting to see what the number is. You may see some wheels turning if DeVito has a great stretch run here to end the season.
Yeah, I agree with Chris. It looks like the new Danny in town. The other topic coming out of this game was the relationship that's starting to catch a lot more fire between Wink Martindale and Brian Daboll. Do they part ways here at the end of the season with this ball club?
I think so. As much as I like Wink and as much as defensively he's an excellent coordinator, something with his system and with how Brian Daboll plays, going to his time as OC in Buffalo and what he's seen, has experienced himself, it's not clicking. And in a case to where you're doing well enough to where you keep the coach, you definitely get rid of the coordinator. There's not room for both of them anymore.
No, and 1000%. The defense did play a lot better today. Again, Kayvon Thibodeau, another decent game. Only a half a sack there tonight, but able to get to Jordan Love a couple times. But Thibodeau really pushing the envelope for that defensive front of the New York Giants.
He is, and this is the kind of guy with the kind of season and these performances that they were expecting from in this organization. You're not always going to have, as you say, the monster 2-sack, 3-sack games, but getting that half sack, creating pressure, making opposing quarterbacks uncomfortable. He has continued to do that. He has been a bit of a beneficiary from this Martindale scheme. So you wonder, whoever the new DC is going to be, can he take this wonderful asset, already knowing what works, and building around that? Because the worst thing you want to do is make a change and then having your star defender regress.
Yeah, we looked really quick. It's 3rd down and 3 in the Miami game. Dolphins at the 44-yard line, down to 48 seconds, and they have got to make a play or two. And
I'm sorry. You're 3rd and 3, less than a minute to go. Why are you calling that swing like flare pattern? How? Why?
Miami down to no timeouts right now. 4th and 2. They've got to speed things up. This is the ball game. He's got to complete this.
That's done.
And Tua is sacked, and that is going to end it. And Tennessee is going to come away with a win in this ball game. The play calling that Miami coach come out today, especially after Tyreek Hill doesn't play any of the second quarter, proves that some issues happening in Miami.
I mean, Tyreek Hill is their best receiver. Period. Full stop. The cheetah chase for 2,000. Hopefully, it's still on after this injury, even though he was able to come back to the game. But you have other quality receivers in Jalen Waddle. You've got Mostert. You've got the A-Train in the backfield. You even have Braxton Berrios from the U, who is effective in the slot. You have to make adjustments and not run every play like you're throwing it to Tyreek. You have speed, but you have power, and you have to use it when it counts. In that last drive, get upfield. Get upfield. Get upfield. I don't get it.
Yeah, Miami offensive line looked really good. They were playing shorthanded with 2 guys not out there tonight, but losing their center in the middle of the game, shifting over their guard to play center. Little interesting play calls of what went down for the Miami Dolphins today. So A-Chain could have had a few more carries, could have handed the ball off a little bit more to him. Not the way that this game came out, but take nothing away. Will Levis looked great throwing the ball tonight.
If only he doesn't like mayonnaise in his coffee. I could, not going to say like as a Jaguars fan, tolerate him. I could tolerate him, especially with his style of play, how he slings the ball. I think maybe the torch should be passed from Ryan Tannehill. Will Levis has done more than enough to prove at minimum capable, but at least more consideration for the starting job going into next year. If they've got something cooking in Nashville, I don't like it, but I can acknowledge it.
The big thing is seeing what Derrick Henry has done the last few games. In this one, 17 carries, 35 yards. They did give him the ball down on the goal line, pounded the ball in, 2 touchdowns in this game. Is Tyjae Spears the guy of the future for this Tennessee Titans team?
I think so. And I'm going to make my usual plea. Derek, We love you. You were played right at Yulee, not far from my backyard. We can make room for you. Come home, finish your career here. But it's another case of, as I just said, you pass the torch at quarterback. You're passing the torch now at running back. Keep in the king for short yardage and goal line. But for those first couple downs, I think Spears, he's going to make noise.
The other combination that has gotten better over the last few weeks and for the season since Will Levis come in is the connection between him and DeAndre Hopkins. I'm going to pay for it. I do not start DeAndre Hopkins in my one fantasy league. 7 receptions, targeted 12 times, 124 yards and a touchdown.
Oh,
It hurts.
I'm about to say, as we're getting near playoff time in fantasy football, that at the very least may have dented your chances, but you have time to redeem yourself. You know what's going on. And Tennessee, at least with the Nuke's perspective, you got a couple potential favorable matchups. So, lesson learned. Learned.
Let's I think Randy might be about ready to come back in. We'll see as we welcome him back in. Let's talk about a few of the other games and matchups that happened this week, especially the teams that did not get the wins that came away with losses. Let's talk about Thursday night, first of all. Pittsburgh Steelers lose to the Patriots. Well, I'm trying to hit these few teams that are...
I'm just teasing. Go for it.
No. That are in that playoff hunt. They come away with a loss. The Lions, who are now 9-4, lose to the Bears. Eric, your Jacksonville Jaguars lose to Joe Flacco, the old man.
The elite Joe Flacco, throwing for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Make that face all you want, Isbell.
I got nothing.
The Philadelphia Eagles losing 2 in a row now and losing to Dallas. And the big one, the Chiefs and Bills in this one. Which of these teams that lost are you most worried about moving on into the final 4 weeks?
It's Pittsburgh. 100% Pittsburgh. That you lose at home back-to-back weeks against teams that had 2 wins. It's not pretty. Now also you're like, who are you going to start at quarterback? Is Pickett coming back anytime soon? Not that he's been any good. Trubisky's horrible. They're talking about possibly starting Mason Rudolph. It's starting to get messy. And if you haven't looked, the in the hunt list in the AFC is getting really loaded with teams that are on the ups. And Pittsburgh, while we always say just pencil them in for 9-8 because Mike Tomlin refuses to go under 500, 9-8 all of a sudden is not looking like it's going to be good enough to make the playoffs.
I'll chime in. I'm going to let Eric have his rebuttal, but they've already made the decision. It is Trubisky that will get the start for Pittsburgh this week. Go ahead, Eric.
I'm going to be honest, but Randy, you made a great point. You pencil the Steelers in for 9-8, but you have a lot of Steelers fans expect this. Having the Patriots score more points against you than they had in their previous 3 games combined, having these horrible losses, this is what they've come to realize and see the end of the year. That's why I knew, as good as they are record-wise, they really weren't in it. My main worry, especially for how they started, is Detroit. Came in, the great story, incredible, beating the Chiefs week 1, house on fire. You think, okay, you got control of the division on lock. Now, couple of ugly losses. This ugly loss to the Bears. You got something of a favor by the Packers losing tonight, but Minnesota with an ugly win. Things are not quite over. Any more slip-ups, and you're going to have those teams knocking on the door, then you're going to be wondering, yeah, you're going to be in the playoffs or in playoff position, but what could have been?
Yeah, so now with this loss, Miami is one. Yeah, football is stupid sometimes, but for me, it's going to be coming. Let's talk Ravens for just a second because this loss tonight makes 2 weeks when Baltimore plays Miami huge, especially after having to go through Jacksonville next week, as we have Jacksonville, San Francisco, and then Miami. This is going to be a tough few games if Baltimore wants to hold on to this number 1 seed.
Yeah,
We got-
absolutely. And they didn't look that great against the Rams. I mean, give credit to Los Angeles and Matthew Stafford and that whole crew. And you know what? We were called out on our power rankings last week for having the Rams so much lower than the Seahawks, and I forget now. I'm blanking on the other team that they were comparing them to. And even in this loss, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be moving the Rams up because they look tough. However, for Baltimore, that was your weakest game of your next month, and you really were pushed to the test. But this is what I have learned about. I mean, we talk about a lot of the National Football League, but just something to remind everyone else out there the same. Last week means nothing for next week. And when you look at the records, that doesn't mean that team is going to win. And for weeks like this, where everything goes completely haywire, and it was a good question about who you most worried about. And there's several teams where you go, well, I'm not quite sure right now. They could go out there and go completely nuts the next week. We had so many crazy upsets. We had so much uncertainty. I'm just going to ask this. We're going to bounce things around. I need help right now. We're going to do our top 5 personal power rankings in just a minute. I don't want the rest of them. Can somebody tell me who's 5th? I can't come up with a 5. I can't come up with a 5 right now.
I'm going to have people giving me the most bombastic of side eyes when I say my number 5. But if you look at their trajectory the past couple of weeks, you could potentially make a case for it. Dare I say who my top 5 are now, who I have in 5th? All right. So, number 1, I've got the Niners.
Yes.
Done and dusted. Number 2, even with this, I have the Eagles. However, the Cowboys, I actually moved them up to 3rd. Yes, they got this more recent head-to-head win. They got a head-to-head split. But all the talk about who Dallas beat, now you've got a couple of teams, one on the bubble trying to get in, and another coming to your house, the fortress. You made them lay an egg. That gets a lot of credit in my mind. I've got Baltimore 4th, even with the walk-off win that could have been cleaner. And I'm going to be honest, at 5, I am giving credit to Buffalo. Say what you will for them circling the wagons. They're finally at a place, and you never thought you would have to say this, but they're at a place to where they're getting everything together. And it's one of those times to where if you get everything together at the right time against the right teams on your schedule, you can be dangerous.
I just want to shout out that comment from Chris. He had the Cowboys 25th after the 3rd week. Did not buy into him at all. Has slowly been moving him up the rest of the time. Now we'll have them 3rd. I get the Buffalo thing. I get it. We'll talk about that game here in a second because obviously there's a teensy bit of controversy that happened in this game.
Sorry, what? What controversy? I don't know what you're talking about.
No controversy.
Robert Taylor and I have talked about it for all day. But there's a lot to get into it. So to me, while Buffalo continues to come up with big wins, I really don't think they're better than Kansas City. However, I really don't think Kansas City's the 5th best team after the 4 that I think we're all going to have in our top 4. So I can't have Kansas City there. And then everything I look around is like Detroit is worrying me right now. Looking down Cleveland, is worrying me without their quarterback. They do get the win, but do I really believe in them enough to put in the top 5? So yes, I understand Buffalo because I really think it's 4 and then like 12 other teams right now, which is going to make the playoff race extremely fun. I just can't come up with a 5. Robert, can you help me?
Well, right now, and why I'm leaning the way I did with my picks is, you look at two teams that are extremely hot right now, and we've had San Francisco at the top right now. I'm going to move as much as where I had Dallas this week. I'm moving Dallas and taking a couple jump over the top of Baltimore. I've got San Francisco number 1, Dallas number 2. And just because both of these teams are on 5-game win streaks and their schedule, both of them are very favorable schedules over the next little bit. I keep Baltimore where they're at. The defense a little on the slow side starting in that game over the Rams. Looked totally different in the second half. So I'm going to put them there. With the loss against Dallas, I'm moving Philly down to 4. And I'm going to keep Miami number 5. But I'm just like you, Randy. I Kansas City, Buffalo, Cleveland. I have Cleveland at the bottom of that group, but it's just so jumbled up right now, especially in the hunt picture. Is you look at, Jacksonville 8-5, Kansas City 8-5, Cleveland 8-5, Pittsburgh, who should have not lost, Indianapolis coming off. Who figured Indianapolis in this conversation at 7-6?
Yeah, and also Cincinnati's really fun to watch, even with their backup quarterback. They're going on a run. One team that we didn't talk about as far as being worried about, I think there's a team that I'm far more worried about than the Steelers, and that's the Houston Texans. They've completely fallen apart. CJ Stroud might not play next week after the Jets completely embarrassed him. He really struggled in the rain. Made Zach Wilson look phenomenal, which somebody asked me, what the hell was that about? And I go, this is the Jets season in a nutshell. Every year of my life, we win the offseason. Everything looks great. Maybe the beginning of the season looks okay, right? We'll give you a little bit of optimism. The middle of the year, complete implosion. Everything falls apart. Then we get to about week 15, week 14, the moment that the playoffs are completely out of the picture, and then they do this. And you know what we do as Jets fans? Oh, man, look what next year is going to look like. We do it every year.
Thank you, though, to your Jets for making the Strouds look mortal. We in Jacksonville appreciate this very, very much.
So with that being said, we talked a little bit about those guys. Let's talk another game that didn't have the elements, that was perfectly dry weather, not anything happened, and they add their name to one of the lowest scoring games ever to be played. Minnesota versus the Raiders. Minnesota pulls out a 3-0 win in the final 157. Minnesota is in that bottom in the part of the NFC playoffs. I feel like it really drops off after Detroit. I think it could be any few in that next tier on the NFC side.
Oh,
I'm going to say...
Go ahead, Eric. Go ahead.
I'm going to say this right now. The Pastronaut looks like he's guiding a SpaceX Starship. I mean, this isn't failure to launch. This is exploding and having a crater. And I feel bad because it's like, really? I'm rooting for the guy. I want to see him do better, but it's just, there is nothing there anymore. Meanwhile, you got Kirk Cousins crawling around on the beach, so Minneapolis, figure this out.
So if Josh Dobbs gets benched for next week or whatever is going to happen there, and then they go, never mind, our other options are terrible too, and then he comes back and he wins the next 3 games, do we give Josh Dobbs 2 Comeback Player of the Year awards, since we already decided we're going to anoint him with 1 for coming back from nothing, trying to do the Geno Smith? Or is that ship sailed? It's just, by the way, if you can tell, I still hate the Comeback Player of the Year award almost as much as I hate Bulls. Let's talk about Buffalo and Kansas City. Let's get this out of the way. And yes, I use the word controversy, though I do believe we are all in the same boat. Was he offsides? Yes. 100% he was offsides. And by the way, I learned this today, something I didn't even notice. Rich Eisen brought it up kind of jokingly about it. Mark Schlereth tweets about it. Kansas City got away with another penalty on that play that nobody talks about because they're all upset about this offensive offsides. They were not set legally anyways. Their right tackle was so far off the line of scrimmage, the Chiefs did not have 7 men on the line.
That's I didn't even think about that. And not to mention, and everybody, I have my own conversations in groups with Robert Taylor. He's like, oh, well, look at the all 22. I looked at the all 22. He was offsides. And the side judge said he could not properly view the ball. And I myself, sometimes I'm standing on the line of scrimmage. I tell motion players, hey, back up a half step or back up a full step. A coach says, hey, check with the ref, make sure you're on side. And if I go, I give a thumbs up, good to go. So yes, you see something that could have been Tony checking in, something did not happen, but also the other footage of the all 22, and Dan Orlovsky brought it up. They called that last one. They could have flagged him at least 5 times in that game because he was lined up the exact same way on the line of scrimmage.
See, Robert sent me that video of Orlovsky talking about it. I had 2 issues with it. For one, he said Tony never looked. I have seen a video where Tony looked as he was still walking up to the line and he wasn't set, and then he still inched forward. That's one. 2, I'm sure that it was ESPN's productions that created the line for the other ones he was explaining. His foot was right on those lines, which were lined up with the football. The picture going around all over the place about where Tony is lined up, that line is out in front of the football. So to me, while he was extremely close to riding that line, and I do agree with Andy Reid, I think at that point a referee should have went, hey, Tony is extremely close. Please let him know that you know we're going to have to call him soon. They could have given him that courtesy, and I do understand that what they mean by that courtesy warning of like, hey, he's not there, he's not offsides, but he's getting really close. So just send the message. So to me, those 5 times that Orlovsky shows, he is right on that edge. On the play he got called for, he was a full step in front of those examples to me.
So
Absolutely.
I will say, because they talked about it, and I don't remember who it was. I think it was Rex Ryan was talking about it and brought it up. You look at that play, you're right. His front foot is well in front, but his back foot is on the 50, where the other receiver on the other side's front foot is. You can literally see almost a half a yard to a yard extra front on Tony. And so that's the big thing. But, you know, as being a football coach, the first thing you coach at the junior high level to wide receivers is, one, the route tree. And then the second, you check with the ref every time you come up. If you're the guy on the line, you're checking every time. Those are the first 2 things you're ever taught at the middle school level. And so, you know, he failed to do that. But it's like they were saying, and I kind of agree with you, Eric, is they talked about him pushing that line all game. And it just happened that this time he just pushed it a little too far. And he didn't. I did see the video that Randy's talking about. He does look over at the ref, but he's still moving as he's getting set. So as far as seeing that, I think hands down penalty. I'm going to change this direction a little bit now. Is Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in the wrong for how they handled it in the press conference after?
I think that's still heat of the moment with NFL press conferences. It's 20, 30 minutes after the game, and they are still frustrated with it. I obviously Mahomes overreacted on the sideline, and that got to be a bit too much, but I am not going to sit here and go that this is showing Mahomes' true colors, or he is showing himself to be a crybaby, or all the stuff that you keep reading online of people going, oh, okay. No, there's a bad moment for Patrick Mahomes, and he has already apologized for it and said he went too far and he can't act that way. But I'm just going to say it like this. And this is another thing that I brought up with Robert Taylor today. To me, Patrick Mahomes is not extremely upset about that one call.
Right.
Think about what happened to the Chiefs last week. Now, there were calls that went for Kansas City, but there were terrible calls that went against Kansas City, including a pass interference call, which blew my mind that they did not call. So this is weeks of frustration for Mahomes, not just with the refs, but with his wide receivers completely letting him down. So he is frustrated. So my example that I gave to Robert Taylor, and I will give to you guys, because you guys like baseball too. You remember a certain game where the Yankees' Aaron Boone lost his mind on Laz Diaz and went absolutely ape on the man and drew the line and did the whole acting like he threw, like did the out call and all that. That whole implosion on Aaron Boone, for one, does not look good on him, and he feels bad for doing it. Same thing that Patrick Mahomes did. But two, it was a buildup of bad calls that when he finally did blow up, it was actually a real correct call from Lance Diaz. So Patrick Mahomes blows up over a call that actually ended up being correct, but it was from the frustrations from everything else. Also, if anyone's going to go out there and call Patrick Mahomes this big, giant, crazy baby, you have to say that about every Major League Baseball manager and player in the history of everything, because you see those reactions all the time.
And oh, go ahead, Robert.
No, you go right ahead, because
you had said it yourself and you highlighted the heat of the moment. It's battle. You're like a volcano. You're erupting. That happens. We've all had those moments one way or another. And as far as the press conferences, I'm going to go letter of the rule, spirit of the rule. Because we all know the rules. You can't talk about the refs, officiating. You're going to get a letter. You're going to be making a not so voluntary donation to some sort of league charity, which I get. But at the same time, are you actively disparaging them? No. You're saying, hey, this is part and parcel. This is what happens. This is how it should have been done. And in reality, you are saying what so many other fans, so many other eyes on TV, everybody else is also saying. These have been some abject, in some cases, terrible calls. So they're basically saying, yes, you all see it. We're seeing it too. Something has to be done. So if I'm looking at it, I'm like, yes, it makes sense. And in some cases, yes, they need to say it, because otherwise this isn't going to get fixed, even if another situation that, like back in the day, the infamous Hail Mary that happened.
So here's my thing with Patrick Mahomes, and we talked about it a little bit, is the idea of, yes, heat of the moment, but his frustration, I think, has played out over the past few weeks. Mm-hmm. And yes, that call last week was total blown call. Now for this week, for him to make the comment, and it was right after the press conference, that he has never in his entire career had seen offensive offsides in anything. Well, this was the 13th one called this season in the NFL alone, which I understand that. But I think where the biggest issue, and I have to say this, I actually agree with Stephen A. Smith. And here's why. He is I know I hate Stephen A. Smith, but I agree with him after listening to him today. He's more frustrated with everything that's going around him right now. For a man that averaged 308 yards a game last year to averaging 261 yards this year, because his receivers cannot make plays, his frustration level is up here. Mm-hmm. And that's the bottom line with him. Was it the correct call? Yes. Is it the frustration boiling over from everything that's happening with his group around him? And I think that's 1,000% correct. And I think the first time I've ever agreed with Stephen A. Smith.
Well, I will say real quick, just to go against one of your points, and it was spewed everywhere on all the different stuff I was watching. Yes. But what did you say? 13, 11 or 13 calls?
Mm-hmm.
How many of it
13.
this year?
13
of them. A high majority of the offensive offside calls have been called on tush pushes. I think there's only been 2, maybe 3 that have been called on a wide receiver this year. So it's not. While the referees are saying, "Well, it's a higher focus," it's because the tush push, everyone's trying to get as close as possible. And there's been many times where people go over the line, including Chris brought up a center getting called for it, where his other hand he put in front of the ball. Or I think somebody found out it was a different player's hand, but still it was offsides. I think they just called it on the wrong guy. But I'm just saying, most of those have been on an offensive lineman trying to get leverage on this new tush push phenomenon that has taken place. So it is not going crazy. It has never happened to the Chiefs with Mahomes as the quarterback. He is right there. I want to say somebody found out it was like the first time since 1998 for Kansas City that they have had that play called on them.
Even for Kansas City, they highlighted the stat. I believe it was Andy Reid's career. All like over 25,000. I remember 25,873 offensive plays. This happened once.
Mm-hmm.
I completely get it. And that's why I haven't gone against Mahomes. I haven't gone against Andy Reid. I'm one of the main people to say their anger is justified. It completely is. And this should bring up another conversation I and a couple of others have had. Full-time referees and sky judges. Yes, you will open another Pandora's jar, but I would rather have that one than what we're going through right now.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. It has to be full-time referees. It is proven that there's a lot that they need to work on, and it takes time, and it takes a lot. There's so much going on. One last thing, and then I want to move on to next week's schedule real quick and kind of bounce us and move us forward because we're having a fun conversation, but we're stuck on it. But one thing I'll push back against Patrick Mahomes in his press conference, the one thing I didn't like was the fact that he said that, for one, that the referees ruined a fantastic moment. No, your wide receiver ruined a fantastic moment, which, by the way, somebody pointed out he was throwing a fit because he was open and didn't get the ball thrown to him. And then Kelsey threw it to him and he scored a touchdown. So he wasn't even finishing the play at that time. But his anger's at the wrong spot. But his notion of, well, it wasn't even part of the play. It didn't change anything, so it shouldn't be called. They didn't wait for the play to be over and go, okay, he was really offsides, we'll throw it. They threw it the moment it happened. And if Patrick Mahomes wants this to be the case, then you know what? They have to change the rule that if a defensive lineman jumps and then resets himself and then goes again, that's not actually offsides because it didn't change the nature of the play because he reset himself. Or if he jumped out offsides and he didn't get to the quarterback, it didn't affect the play. He's fine. So that's all I was saying. It's like, don't be asking for this stuff because we can fix it. We can fix it. All these holding penalties that happen 30 yards away from the play, it really didn't actually matter. So we're going to go ahead and count this play. Look ahead at the next week. We have 4 weeks left in the regular season. And now we get to the fun stuff. Schedules really start messing around. We get Saturday games now that college football has gotten out of the way. And now they just have to compete with bowl games. And we know how easy it is to beat these bowl games now. Unfortunately, Thursday looked good, and it could be entertaining still, but it's not between 2 good teams. Justin Herbert, I'm going to guess, is out for the year now with his fractured finger. But Chargers and Raiders is our Thursday night game. I won't even ask your opinion other than who do you got?
I made it known on the notes. I'm going to be picking it as part of my pick'ems. I'm going with Vegas. As much as I've seen of Easton Stick, he's still Easton Stick. And somebody's got to win, and there's going to be chaos as part of a result. If the football gods were good enough and benevolent, this would just end up in some wacky tie, and then we could just go on to Saturday.
Yes.
Yeah, for me, I have to look at this team in what Josh Jacobs has not done, and I think he breaks free with this one, knowing who is going to start. I think it's, yeah, I think it's going to end up being the Raiders at home.
I need to gain games because I keep gaining one game on Hagen and our NFL picks, and I'm running out of weeks to do it. But I can't take the Chargers, not without Justin Herbert on the road. Give me home team on Thursday night. Rest of our picks will be on the R&R Sports Report on Thursday morning, but we'll look ahead at some of these games right now. I have to say, the Saturday slate looks really good, and I'm very excited for that. Vikings and Bengals, two teams trying to get into the playoffs. Same thing with Steelers and Colts. And then a really sneaky, interesting game to me. Denver, who's on the rise, going to Detroit, who is trying to fight this decline. Eric, out of those three games, what's the most intriguing matchup to you?
Broncos country, let's ride. For everything, Sean Payton, Russell Wilson, the memes, everything else, look at what Denver has done. And coming on up, maybe making it that AFC West with the cracks in Kansas City's armor. Plus, as I've mentioned, I'm worried about Detroit. If you were ever going to go ahead and get another helping of them famous kneecaps, this would be it. Because then another loss after what happened with the Bears and what's been going on the last month, that's when you really get the doubt seeping in. That's when you really are vulnerable to a potentially dangerous mindset. That's the one I'm keeping my eye on the most of the Saturday tripleheader.
Robert, what about you?
You know, it for me, it goes a couple different ways. I love the slate of games, but right now there's three AFC North teams currently in the playoff push. I think it boils down to the Indianapolis Steelers game, and I hate saying this, but there's a good chance that Indianapolis moves ahead, and I think all of them, but I think that game is going to be probably the most important to watch out of this slate of three.
You know what? The three of us work together because we have notes, though I didn't look at them this week, but we did not prep this. I am most intrigued by the Vikings and Bengals. No, it wasn't just so we could talk about all three. But you know what? On the Rich Eisen show, one of his co-hosts brought up the point. Jake Browning, get your Brock Purdy on, man. He comes in as the backup quarterback, and he is slinging it all over the field. And you know what? We all wrote off Cincinnati. They were struggling at the beginning of the year with Joe Burrow because he was banged up. Then he gets injured. He's out for the year. We go, their season's done. Jake Browning is all of a sudden turned them not only into a playoff contender, but one of those playoff teams you really don't want to face. I would almost rather play Buffalo than Cincinnati right now. And that is shocking to say with them not having their starting quarterback. I'm very intrigued to see if they can continue that going. And then whatever the heck is going on with Minnesota.
Yeah. So this is going to be interesting. I'm going to ask you, you're covering the Lewiston game. How is your Saturday going to look trying to watch these games?
Impossible, because I have the Lewiston game and then I have LC. So I will watch. That's the other reason why the Vikings and Bengals is the most intriguing, because that's the one game I can watch in full. So, look at the rest of your what are we, week 15 slate? God, going by so fast. What really stands out to you the rest of the week? Just give me one game.
Sunday night, baby. Sunday against somebody's Jaguars.
Now look, I'm just going to say this. I said it in the blurbs. We faced our old foes in the AFC Central, okay? It's just a blip. We're going to go. We're going to get Trevor Lawrence some Waffle House. Going to get him his hash browns and everything else. Have a delicious waffle. He's still good on 1.5 legs. We're going to be fine. We're going to be absolutely fine. We're going to be at home. It's going to be Sunday night. Fans are going to be drunk. The bank is going to be loud. Bring it. Bring it. Bring it. Bring it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Besides
hope-
that other game, the only other part one I want to say it because Randy, you talked about him at your number 5. I think the other one is how do the Buffalo Bills circle the wagons against the Cowboys in the afternoon?
That's weird to have a Super Bowl every year preview if you're asking Chris Berman. This is your Super Bowl preview every single year is that game. By the way, Eric, I'm hoping everything you said about Jacksonville is right because I have to take the Jaguars to try to catch up to Robert because I know we don't talk about who we're picking. But I know that one. I know where he's going that way, and I have to go the opposite because what am I 7 games back still with 4 weeks to go? I got to make some moves. But yeah, those really are the only 2 games that are that interesting. I guess Giants and Saints, just because the Giants keep finding sneaky ways to win. The Saints are in the garbage NFC South, so that is all of a sudden interesting playoff implications. Can the Seahawks make it 3 straight losses for the Eagles on Monday Night Football? There's some interesting games. And then the Jets probably getting crushed by the Dolphins again, and I have to wear that stupid hat on Sunday night.
I don't know. I don't think lightning strikes twice. I think at a bare minimum, we're not going to see another Hail Mary. So that could be more intriguing than you realize.
If we see another Hail Mary, I quit. I just can't do it. I just cannot. All right, let's get to the other big news that happened this week over there in Major League Baseball. Juan Soto's a Yankee baby. Is there anything else that happened this week? Because once that happened, I tuned out.
Yawn. Oh, good. So you can.
There's a what to his name, not Yawn. Juan.
Oh,
Soto.
you better get used to hearing that when he strikes out 2 or 3 times a game. I mean, yeah, you'll be yawning through his at bats. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's not true. He carried me to a fantasy baseball championship, sir.
Yeah, but now he'll have the infected stench of Yankee Stadium and pinstripes all over him. I mean,
It's going to be so beautiful. He was batting .230 in that horrible, weird backyard of a factory that was San Diego.
so
Now
good.
he's
So
got
he gets
short
the
porch.
okay.
short
So he
porch.
bumps up to 250. Hooray! Yay!
Oh,
Fantastic.
he batted over 300 outside of San Diego. So you keep that going. It's going to be good. It's great. Juan Soto is a Yankee. Yamamoto will probably not be a Yankee because of what the Dodgers did. And that is signed Shohei Ohtani to a ridiculous contract and then made it even more ridiculous with the news that came out today. Robert, what surprises you more? That he signed a 10-year, $700 million contract, or the fact that he will be the 17th highest Dodger player this year?
Well, for him to break his own news, I think was really great, and him taking to Instagram. I did have an issue about when he did it because I was trying to listen to the start of the Army Navy game, but for me,
real quick before you get to your point, I do want to address Chris's thing with the non-salary caps and how is this legal. By the way, with salary caps, teams find loopholes all the time. Signing bonuses change NFL salary caps all the time. NBA trades come up with weird ways to get around salary caps all the time. So without salary caps and a luxury tax, the Dodgers found a ridiculously clever loophole. Anyway, sorry, Robert, go ahead.
No, I think for me, they did say the word quite frequently listening to the MLB channel on Sirius, listening on the drive that there was going to be some kind of deferred system and they were going to work around it. And so that was news on Saturday when it came down. As of today, what he's doing, and it's like I messaged you, I think this is smart by both him and the Dodgers. He's planning for his future. He's got 10 years left. I think he finishes his career as a Dodger, but he's planning for his future of, do I go back to Japan and buy a team? Do I get involved with something here in the States or something? I think it's hats off to both of these guys. And for him to just take $2 million a year, it's like you and I talked. he's got so many other endorsement deals that he is getting paid for. Taking $2 million from the Dodgers every year is not going to be much.
Specifically to Chris Picard, and Jeff Passan tweeted this. I will quote it verbatim. Article 16, deferred compensation. There shall be no limitations on either the amount of deferred compensation or the percentage of total compensation attributable to deferred compensation for which a uniform player's contract may provide. Randy, you and I talked about this with the CBA and how could there be a potential change? We'll see that in 2026.
Mm-hmm.
Given the Blue Jays reported offer, 10 years, $600 million before this, I wasn't surprised. That surprised at the number whatsoever. It's the Dodgers. Was I surprised about the deferred compensation? There had been rumors and everything swirling already. The only thing that I'm surprised about is the length of compensation. I was rooting for Showtime to put Bobby Bonilla to shame. I would have marked Shohei Ohtani Day on my calendar through to 2070 and would have been fine. The fact that it's only a 10-year deferment and it's going to be from 2034 to 2043, that's also incredibly smart, taking into account inflation and spending power over a much shorter period of time. Plus, as Robert said, you look at his endorsement portfolio, he's still banking 50, 60 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible salary deal, and at a 46 million contribution to the tax, Dodgers made out like bandits. I have to hand it. This is savvy business.
Yeah, and for those that are going, well, the nearly $700 million, he'll still have his contract. That'll start really hitting the luxury tax after he retires, and it's going to hurt you down the line paying, $40-some million a year to a player that's not even playing. The luxury tax is probably going to be much higher in 10 years, and it probably won't even affect them at all. I mean, how many times you look at teams that have money on the books? I think the Yankees finally got Alex Rodriguez off the books a couple of years ago, and he retired a long ass time ago. So it's a brilliant move. And I think that what we're all frustrated about is our team didn't think of it. And that's why I really think that it will get changed, because it could start becoming a real issue and teams coming up with different ways to do it. Our buddy David Diefenberg sent me a tweet. I forget who had posted it, but somebody came out with a great joke that the Oakland Athletics had actually offered Shohei Ohtani $700 million over 700 years, just $1 million a year. And then they got turned down, but it was disappointing for them. But it's going to be interesting to see what other athletes try to go this route. Not all of them can do what Ohtani's doing. As like Eric and Robert both said, the endorsements that Ohtani's making, like the $2 million is nothing. It's all about the sponsorships and the endorsement deals he already has, and he's going to gain now being a Dodger. Yes, he was already an Angel and he was in that area, but there's a different prestige level for being a Dodger, and it's just going to be a bigger impact for him. So defer all that money, open up some other possibilities, which is possibly Yamamoto, who's the big other free agent possible signing out there, to which I have been begging for the winter of Yamamoto this whole time. We got half of it, but with what the Dodgers and Ohtani did, Yamamoto really wants to play with his old buddy. And it's scary to see what that Dodgers team could be. But with all of that said, before anyone else goes out there and goes, the Dodgers are just trying to buy championships. They're just the new Yankees. They're trying to be like the Red Sox or the Mets. How many championships have those four teams won in the last 20 years? What, the Red Sox are at 3?
Yeah, I mean,
the Dodgers are at 1. The Yankees are at 1.
Yeah, Vegas is going to make a lot of money for everybody that rushed in to get futures bets on Toronto winning the World Series. And the Dodgers are going to have a fantastic season only to lose to some random team in the NLCS or some random 90-win team in the division series.
For whatever reason, while baseball does not have a salary cap, it just seems to work out where a team like my New York Yankees will throw money everywhere, but then they don't actually figure out how to put the team together. And then those high price players go out there and they do spectacular things, but they don't play as a team and they don't do the small things that you saw from the Texas Rangers. You don't do the small things like we saw from the low budget Arizona Diamondbacks, which were a fun story. This doesn't hurt baseball. It doesn't kill baseball. I honestly think it helps baseball. Get these star players on these big teams, and you either love them or you hate them. Ratings are going to continue to go up. Attendance went up last year with all the rules that they did, and now all this extra stuff going on. This is all really good for baseball. I'm sad it's not the Yankees getting Ohtani or coming up with this cool, clever loophole. This is good for Major League Baseball.
That's okay. When you lose the AL East to the Rays again this year, it won't even matter.
Yeah, and that's another team. The Rays always have the lowest stupid salary, and they always come out just fantastic. I hate your organization and how well it's run, sir.
Well,
you
say about the salaries, and I sent you that picture, Randy, and that came from the Front Office Sports that DraftKings had posted. Eric, I don't know, I didn't send it to you, but not sure if you saw this. This was before all the deferred stuff come out, and they were talking about Shohei Ohtani was going to make more money than 8 other major league franchises for their entire roster. Mm-hmm. That being said, Cleveland, Miami, Kansas City, Milwaukee, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Oakland, all of their team salaries are below $70 million.
Yeah, but other than Baltimore, name one other organization there that's well run.
Yeah, good point.
And to think, Tampa Bay isn't even on that list. That's amazing in of itself.
All right, let's move on to college football. First off, shout out to the Idaho Vandals. What a season they had. They fall short to the UAlbany Great Danes. I hate that they kept putting a U in front of it. Just call them Albany. But that was a really hard-fought game. A lot of offense in the first half, a lot of defense in the second half. But a mistake late in that contest cost the Vandals, and unfortunately, that's it for their year.
Yeah, they had a great season, and hats off to what these guys did. Giovanni McCoy, another great game, over 300 yards passing, and it's just exciting to watch them. I think the changing of the guard with Coach Eck there has been the difference for this team, and I'm excited to see where the Vandals go for the next few years with him.
Yeah, no, unfortunately for Idaho, they have a lot of players already hitting the transfer portal, and that's just another story with college football that continues to make it a big issue. I don't blame any of these players. Obviously, they had a fantastic year. Now go out and get to a program where you can get some of your NIL deals and make your money. Have no problems with the players. It just continues to show that college football and college athletics, if it's, I guess, just for the most part, basketball and football, you can add in gymnastics and some of the other sports that actually draw some money. But for these major sports, it's not amateur anymore. Stop calling it amateur athletics.
From what I've been hearing, the latest moves from the Board of Governors and a lot of talk going on, I think even they realize, we're not amateur. We just got to go ahead and find a way to control things. So again, Randy, what are your 2 favorite words that I say almost on a weekly basis?
Go Jets.
The other 2 favorite words, Super League. Super League. Get used to hearing that phrase.
I was trying to come up with other 2 words, but none of them were family friendly.
You know it's a weird show when I'm the one that's almost saying family show. What timeline is this?
I'm just saying. I know our conversations.
So, I'm going to jump up and we're going to keep going. The other big shocking news out of the college ranks, are you shocked that Jaden Daniels wins the Heisman?
Somewhat. I mean, going ahead statistically, he had a fantastic season, but if you look at what I always say are your three major eyeball metrics, your marquee game that's hyped up at the beginning of the season, which for LSU was Florida State. Look at how that ended. A big rivalry game against Alabama. Look at how that ended. And then your last game, which, because of how the SEC West stacked up, wasn't even a conference championship. You had better options, but on a numbers analytical case, okay. But uh,
No, I would have went Michael Penix Jr. honestly with where I would have went with it. He had the numbers. The team was really good. He came up in big situations. Though I will say he wasn't as fantastic the last couple of weeks, and maybe that hurts him a little bit. But the team still gets the W, and that moves on. However, quarterback wins are not a quarterback stat, and they should never be. Too much going on in the sport of football. I don't believe Jaden Daniels was the best player. This was the perfect year to go outside of the box. Obviously, I didn't look at all of the other numbers and stuff, but to look at a defensive player, maybe that really stood out because really the quarterbacks were just there. Like Penix is fantastic. Bo Nix was really good there for Oregon, and they were both deserving to be finalists. And Jaden Daniels definitely put up the numbers, but just to have one non-quarterback here in a year where it was very spread out and nobody really jumped out. It could have been really interesting to go out again. I don't know the numbers and I don't know if there's anybody defensively that really stood out, but maybe to go outside of the quarterback position would have been a little fun this year.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Michael Penix was a little bit more the well-rounded one, but with the numbers that Jaden Daniels put up, I didn't realize he had 1,100 yards rushing. So never looked at that part of him. I was looking at his other numbers as just the thrower. So excited with that one. So
yeah, and for this, if I'm looking at it, like I said, the numbers I understand, but I'll make it unanimous here. Michael Penix Jr., if you're going someone more out of the box, I would have seen Blake Corum get a little more recognition for how he had a wonderful season rushing for Michigan. So, another one of those where it's just like, okay, it's just okay.
Mm-hmm. And then the non-surprising things in college football, players dropping out of bowl games and moving on. Kalen Williams did it, the quarterback for North Carolina, who could go number one in the draft as well. Blanking on his name, I apologize.
Drake May
announced, thank you, Drake May. He announced he's not going to play in their bowl game. By the way, you don't want these guys to skip out on these bowl games. Why is if the bowl games don't matter? The playoffs don't matter. Once again, I've said this for almost 4 years now on this show. We just talked about who won the Heisman before we play the bowl games. If you don't want them just to look at as an extra exhibition game, don't make them exhibition games. Make them count. Everyone plays in them anyways. Just make it an extra week or two for everyone to play. And we move on. And no, it's makes no sense. The bowl games need to just disappear. Just expand your playoffs. Have those fun with those teams. Everyone else wants out anyways. Nobody wants to play these games.
I said it before with all of this realignment, and I'm saying it now. 2030, when these next round of contracts stack up, more will be paid for the playoff. You're probably not going to see conference championship games anymore. And you expand that playoff to maybe D3 levels at 32 teams. You work around. Bam.
Haley's
Everybody gets what they want.
1/4 of any of these bowl games. I don't know what she's saying.
With that being said, I was going to say, let's just, I know where you want to drive this one. With that being said, your bowl picks will be out hopefully by Friday as Randy is wrapping up with his
I don't have to give you all of them, do I?
No, I'm hoping to get the first 8. There's 8 before our
Okay.
next. The first 8 by
There's
the time
so
we come
many.
back.
Why do we have 8 already?
There's 6 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday,
But there's
1
3
on Monday.
NFL games. What is college football doing?
Money.
You lose money. You're going up against 3 good NFL games.
It's not ratings money. It's money for the places where the bowl games are going to be held.
So glad that Appalachian State's going to get that avocados from Mexico money. I'm just saying.
Hey, now, avocados are delicious. Now, if they really wanted to do it right, the trophy would be nothing but avocado toast. Anything else, and they're doing it wrong.
Tell you what, I'll go to the restaurant, order avocado toast, hold the avocado.
So, toast.
Just like the commercial that's on TV right now. Just toast.
I saw what you did there.
My brain. What? Gee. All right, let's move on to some local stuff. LC Sports off to a pretty good week as LC is rolling right now. The women are now on a 4-game winning streak. They took care of Evergreen State 74-45, and then Walla Walla in their 1 game last week 82-62. Men have also won 3 straight. They're finally up over 500. They took care of Walla Walla 94-68. 5 players in to double figures. There 2 home games this weekend, Friday against Corbin at 7 p.m. and then against Bushnell, 5 and 7 on Friday, women and then men. And then Saturday it's 4-6. I will be there all day Friday and then for the men's game on Saturday because Lewiston, for whatever reason, switched the boys' game to a home game. That was never told to me until Lee told me today. I don't even know why that happened, but LC off to a roll, indoor track. I didn't get a chance to write these notes down. You can go look it up on lcwarriors.com. Spoilers, track and field had an event. Records were broken. It's what they do. They break records. Every event. We have done this show for over 3 years, and I feel like every track and field event, multiple school records get broken. Like the program continues to get better and better. A lot of national qualifying times, and we're set. Again, check that out, lcwarriors.com. Local sports as far as high school goes. Girls are playing Post Falls tonight. I have no idea what the score is. I'll have that update for when I do the broadcast tomorrow. Couple of split games. Lewiston just can't figure out how to beat Lakeland, who has a really good team. They do come away with a good win against Pullman, 60-47. So Lewiston girls are now 3-4 again, pending what happened tonight. I have not seen that result. Boys got their season underway, had some fun down there in Southern Idaho. Since then, losing 2 really close games. First to Pullman, 44-41, and then against Lakeland, 69-64. So it's a really good team. They I think every game they've played has been extremely close. But they're 2-3. Both teams will take on Pendleton tomorrow over there at Lewiston High School. It's the home opener for the boys. Girls are at 5:30. Boys are at 7. I'll have all the calls for you on the River 105.1 and bingoathletics.com. And Clarkston has also been in action, and that is where that guy starts talking. He's over here.
Yeah.
That guy starts talking.
Yeah, so both ball clubs have been going 90 miles an hour, and the girls so far undefeated, 5-0, come off a big win against Colfax, holding Bryn McGoy. We talked about Bryn a fair amount last year. The Bantams held her to just 17 points in their matchup, so unbelievable with that. And then they had a huge win at Freeman on Saturday, where I had the call on 92.1 with that one. The boys, though, struggling a little bit to have lost their last 2 to a very good Colfax team, and also a Freeman team who has beat Pullman, and they have done quite well. Xander Vantine has been leading the way, as well as Carter Steinwan. Tomorrow, reason why we're doing tomorrow or doing the game, the show tonight. Tomorrow, picked up a game. We are playing Orofino tomorrow. Boys at 7:00, and then we are hosting Post Falls, the Trojans. So I know you'll have a Lewiston Post Falls matchup pretty soon, but we'll get to see them before you. Girls step at 5:30, boys at 7:00. And Mr. Brian Bremling will have the call, our buddy, friend of the show. He'll have the call on 92.1 FM for your Clarkson Bantams matchups. Then that is the last games before out of the Christmas break, and we get to the Avista tournament hosted by Lewiston and Clarkson. And sir, I have to correct myself because I thought it was the Downing team from Southern Idaho that was coming up to do the Avista tournament. I have been corrected. It is Downing from California, which is outside the greater Los Angeles area. They are a very high-ranked team that is coming up to take on a Lapwai team. So that Lapwai Downing game is going to be a huge game. And Vista will have that coverage. We'll talk about the brackets for that one on our day after Christmas show.
And update real quick. Lewiston girls did lose to Post Falls today, 53-39. Max Preps has the score. Thanks, Idaho Sports, for never updating. But there you go. But yeah, again, we'll talk about the Avista tournament as we get closer and closer. Try to get Mike Taco on as we've been able to do the last couple of years. The bracket is up on R&R Sports Report. You can check it all out. It is 3 fantastic days of basketball. We talk many times that there are 3 events that we get hyped for here in the Valley: the Avista Holiday Tournament, Golden Throne, and of course the NAIA World Series. So getting close to one of those big 3 in just a couple of weeks' time. Now, just like the beginning of the show, I'm going to step away because you guys are going to talk about gibberish.
Well, we'll keep it short and sweet for Randy, but some big news coming out of the golf world, and Jon Rahm signs with LIV. Were you shocked, Eric, when you saw this?
I was not. I've been following this story and the rumors for about the past 5-6 weeks. There were a lot of discussions. He was in talks with Phil Mickelson. Everybody was wondering, he's not happy with the PGA. Would he make the move? Then all of a sudden, I hear he signed in the realm of a $300 million deal. Talks now of expansion with LIV Golf. He's going to be captain of his own team. And now there's another couple of names potentially coming in. So with all the talk of Monahan trying to find partners and everybody else avoiding the public investment fund, I said it in multiple conversations. The PIF and LIV are saying, look, we can do this merger and everything the easy way or the hard way. I'm looking forward to 2024. It's going to end up being another fantastic season. There might be a trip in my near future to Nashville for an event on my birthday. That's to be decided. I've got a couple of events that I'm judging between this summer.
Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting thing. We'll see how all of this pans out. Saudi putting their money out there, letting everybody see it. So it'll be interesting with that.
Stop saying that word. It's not interesting. It's ruining the sport of golf. It's uninteresting, all of it. The tournaments are horrible now on both sides because you mix up all the good golfers in different tournaments. You look at leaderboards now and you're like, who are these people?
Look, I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of fantastic moments. I'm still itching for the team playoff. We've never had it yet. Even Faraday, he's been smelling it. The nose has been so close. Come on, could it happen at least once? Now that we're going into another season, add that extra thrill. The individual playoffs have been great. The championships have been great. Come on. Just give me one. One.
I don't know. I'm still the traditionalist. I'd like to see them all together, but I want to see everybody playing the same tournament. So I'm like that with LIV.
So tell that to Jay Monahan. Go through, let the merger happen. Everybody will win.
Eric also put on there some AFL preseason stuff is starting to get announced. Are you ready for your Hawthorne Hawks, Randy?
Not for preseason.
Hey,
What are we doing here?
Hey.
I gotta look at the
This is-
show notes more often and fix some of this garbage.
Look, this may be the one time you get a win. The league hates
That's
us.
fair.
They
That's
have it.
fair.
They have it out for us. We have to go to Launceston in Tasmania, where you have our number for our lone preseason game. Seriously, we can't catch a break. We can't catch a break. Can't catch a break.
Eric over here complaining because they're gonna lose a non-Rio game.
Look, of everybody who had a scrimmage match last year, you know why we did it? We decided we can't stand GWS enough to play you. We're like that, okay? It matters to us, especially when we got to get our list straight for our round one muster.
But you know what? It just proves everything that we've talked about over the last couple of weeks. We've talked to you guys, because I refuse, talked about Live. We talked Aussie Rules football preseason. You know what's not in our show notes? The NBA in-season tournament. I'm so glad those courts are gone now. Anybody care that LeBron won a made-up tournament?
I mean, until they name the cup after David Stern, until they actually give teams some sort of incentive rather than just $500,000 per player for winning it, I'm like, congratulations, yay, but whatever.
I had this conversation with somebody at work who, I mean, he's a big NBA guy, so he's trying to defend it. But he's like, it's making them play harder. It's like playoff basketball. I'm like, then your season is too long. You don't need 82 games if the players are going, oh, you guys are actually going to pay us $500,000 if we win these 3 games in December. All right, I guess we'll try. Guess what? In January, they're all going to start sitting again. And then they're going to have to come up with a second in-season tournament. And they're going to have an in-season tournament every month.
Well, that's why they came out with the 65-game minimum for player awards and for different stats and things because of load management. I'm saying, hey, the 66-game strike season wasn't that bad. Have a 66 or even a 58-game regular season and have everything with the playoffs. I'm fine with that.
Same too. But again, that just didn't drive with me. And it seemed like every game went over 130 for the losing team. So I was like, their defense is just completely gone from that sport, and it's really disappointing.
Hey, now, the Lakers held the Pacers to only 109 in the championship game. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Defensive domination shown, giving up 109 points. Again, as Robert says, next week has to happen. We will have a normal Tuesday night show, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific time. Robert and I will be right here. We'll be from home because it is now winter break at the college, starting, I guess it's finals week this week, but by next week, everything will be done. But the two of us will be here breaking down everything, getting you ready for all of the holiday stuff, wrapping up some of the local events, and breaking down that Jaguars-Ravens game from Sunday Night Football. And, of course, Eagles and Seahawks, I guess, on Monday night as well. But it'll be a normal show next week, we promise. Again, I booked all 3 of us for after Monday Night Football next week. So if something comes up, we can't do the show on Monday. So I'm making this happen. I'm tired of these Monday shows, but it has been a lot of fun. There are more loosey-goosey, and we just get to kick back and talk about topics, and maybe that is something to think about. But I am just tired of doing these later Monday night shows and then getting off here and then trying to get power rankings done. So, Eric, I want to thank you once again for hopping on. You were kind of just the backup in case I couldn't make it. And then it was like, well, we'll just keep Eric on no matter what, because he's just a lot of fun. Anyways, Robert, thanks for getting everything set up this week. I appreciate you as well. But that will do it for this week's edition of the R&R Sports Report. For Eric, that's Robert. I'm Randy. We are the R&R Sports Report, and until next Tuesday night,